pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay, again, apologies again for running a little bit late in exec. Moving right along, just to remind everybody that the emergency exits is one in the rear of the room, and then the door that you entered. In the event of an emergency, please leave in an orderly fashion through these exits. This is a smoke-free school district. Smoking or vaping is not permitted in the building or anywhere on school grounds. This is a hate-free and a bully-free school district. Okay, moving on to item C, board consent agenda.
Thank you, President Puccini. The administration recommends approval of board consent items reflected in Schedule C1 through C9.
C1 through C9, can I have a motion? Mr. Lillo, seconded by Mr. Flippin. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries unanimous. Communications and announcements.
Yes.
You're on.
Sir, thank you.
All right, thank you. Let me just title the presentation. Right, so my superintendent's report. A lot has happened and in the last few weeks since we've had a meeting, so I'll get through it fairly quickly, but it's a lot of fun stuff. First, I want to just give a shout out to Frank P. Long and their Trunk or Treat Street event, which was a lot of fun and well attended. Big shout out to the administration there and the PTA for sort of organizing it. Like I said, we had a lot of great participation from community members, old and young alike. I was unable to attend, but Kramer Street and Brookhaven also had a trunk or treat event that was successful, as well as Critz, who had actually a Halloween dance, which was very well attended and well enjoyed. The high school also hosted a district-wide trunk or treat event that is hosted by our various clubs and our student council, which was also a lot of fun. It was a great opportunity for our kids to get together. Our high school students did a fantastic job engaging the younger learners in our district in various games, including Twister and Cornhole and some face painting. Again, it was a lovely evening and very well attended and positive event. Moving on to our pep rally, which we hosted. First, I want to give a shout out to Mrs. Sotelli, our athletic director, for hosting a great pep rally, and our entire high school staff who participated. There was over 1,000 people in attendance. It really went off without a hitch, where we celebrated all of our sports teams for the fall season. And these are our junior varsity teams, our tennis team, our soccer team, our golf team, soccer team for both genders, volleyball, and football JV. So big shout out to great seasons for each of our competitive sports in the junior varsity arena. But we also acknowledge our varsity sports, including our boys soccer, girls soccer, volleyball, tennis, golf, football, of course, and really bringing up the spirit was our varsity cheer. So I want to thank all of our student athletes for fantastic seasons. All were very competitive, and also a big shout out again to our athletic director, Martino Sotelli, who did a great job in organizing the event, as well as the high school staff and students who participated. One of the things I shared and was shared on social media was a video that was also generated by our broadcast students just launching the pep rally, which was also fantastic. So I just want to give them their due accolades. Not included, if you notice, was our cross-country team, because they could not attend the pep rally because they were competing. And they had an awesome season, so I decided to give them a special slide because they're still competing. We have a couple of kids who are all county, but Ella Mason, once again, will be competing up at state. She pleads 6th, and so we want to wish her luck this weekend upstate. Sotelli will be attending that competition, so she'll be representing the Clippers in the state competition. So cross our fingers, and hopefully she represents our Clippers and comes back victorious. But big shout out to our cross-country team for their efforts and for going on to the postseason. Subsequent to that, we had our homecoming parade, which is also a great success. We had youth sports participating, our pep band, floats, and community came out for a nice and spirited event. I just want to thank everybody who participated. Trustee DeLillo, who actually got to ride an antique fire truck, which was pretty cool. I got to ride along with Mr. Huntsman, which was great. Trustee Felice was also in attendance. Again, well-attended event, despite its early start because it conflicted with the Halloween parade. But a lot of people are out bright and early, so really enjoyed that. And that, of course, led to our homecoming game, which is a fantastic day of competition for our Clippers. We also had a very special coin toss by our local resident and state senator, Dean Murray, who flipped a coin, and which led to a Bellport Clipper victory. Shout out to our homecoming king and queen who were crowned at our homecoming game. That's Robert Deschler and Macy Nieder. Congratulations to them. And again, one of the things I always have a soft spot for is our youth sports, especially our youth cheerleaders. They have little bodies, but they had a lot of spirit. So I wanted to thank them for participating and being on the sidelines. And of course, our #1 Clipper fans, our trustees who were in attendance, including Trustee Hayes, who's not in the picture, but she's always there religiously by the 50-yard line in the stands. It was a great victory for the Clippers. They made a playoff berth. Unfortunately, they lost in the first round of the playoffs, but they were competitive and played with good spirit. And more important than that, they played with good sportsmanship. So congratulations on a successful season. There's always next year, as we say in sports. Moving on to Superintendent's Conference Day, which was held on Election Day. We had a whole variety of offerings for our staff, as it is a day of professional learning. This year, we sort of mixed it up a little bit with some mental health and some self-care workshops, as well as academic workshops. Beth Doyle and some directors engaged in close reading workshops. We engaged in different things from yoga to self-defense. Teachers had the option of picking 3 workshops. All of our staff members, district-wide, also participated in community circles to get a sense of the sort of powerful nature of community circles and how they work. And it wouldn't be a superintendent's conference day if the superintendent didn't participate, but I also led a workshop, a book talk on the book, The Anxious Generation, which led to a wonderful discussion. A little over 50 staff members participated. We talked about sort of the perils of social media, cell phones, and sort of the challenges that adolescents and honestly young people are facing as they grow up in this new sort of era. But a very successful conference day. I just want to give a shout out to all of the staff members who participated in hosting workshops. Obviously Beth Doyle and our directors and building administrators who also helped participate and sort of plan the day. We got a lot of good feedback, and like I said, a very successful day of learning. I had the privilege also attending the SCMEA dinner. That's the Suffolk County Music Educators Association. I've been sort of tasked as being an administrative advisor to the group, and our own Angelina Wasson, who's our music teacher and our music chair, is the president of SCMEA. So I just wanted to honor her and our music staff for all the wonderful things they do for our students, really in all of our buildings. I also got to stop by our new parent orientation hosted by a team of our E&L teachers and Monica Tetuan, which is great to have families feel a sense of comfort and able to answer their questions and concerns, mostly in their native language. But it was a great evening of just interactions with these parents that was held at our Family Engagement Center. We also inducted several students to our Center of Excellence, which is basically a club in the high school that promotes college attendance. For students to support each other. We induct students in 9th grade, and they kind of stay with the club for the 4 years in high school to make sure they're doing the right things academically and also in terms of participation in extracurriculars to sort of help guide them to post-high school life and college. A big shout out to Nicole Alvarado, who's our student speaker, Nicole Kalal, who's an advisor, Colleen Oates-Robish, who's also an advisor. But we also had a very special guest speaker, Vice President Joe Barry, who shared some inspirational words about just staying the course and working hard and the sacrifice it takes to get to college. So it was really a well-attended event and a source of pride for us. We also observed Veterans Day, which was a lot of fun. There was observations across the district in each of the buildings. I had the privilege of attending sort of a flag donations for veterans, local veterans donated flags, which were displayed in front of Bellport Middle School. Bellport Middle School's Social Studies Department also hosted veterans in a Bring a Veteran to School Day, which was a nice experience for the students who got to ask questions about our veterans, to pay them homage and respect. Along the times of election, there was a very special election, and I'm not talking about the presidential election, but there was an election in Brookhaven Elementary School just to teach sort of how elections work, and the students had to campaign for a couple of weeks The two candidates were for best cookie. It was between Oreos and chocolate chip cookies. Can we guess which one won the vote?
Chocolate chip.
I'm hoping chocolate chip.
Oreos. Counterintuitive. So the Oreo cookie won. So I guess the kids who campaigned for the Oreo cookies did a fantastic job. Credit to them. But it was a nice process. They set up the voting booths. So just to teach kids about the election. Again, being civically engaged and making sure you exercise your right to vote. Today was also World Kindness Day. I was going to wear a yellow tie, and I just did not. But staff across the district wore yellow. This is a day of kindness that's kind of observed. So it's, I just want to give a shout out to the teachers of Frank P. Long, who embraced the day and did several activities with the students. The Center of Excellence Club also visited the Boys and Girls Club for a day of team building, and they engaged in a community circle. I'm really happy to report that our community circles, which is part of our restorative practices, is really taking sort of a life of its own, as people are seeing the merits of just engaging in these conversations with staff and students. It's just a way to bring people closer together and to forge relationships which are crucial to the success of our students. Also wanted to give a shout out to the middle school boys football team who raised over $2,000 for breast cancer research as part of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So I just want to give those boys sort of their credit, and girls. And finally, I'm really excited, I know you can't see it, but we'll be mailing out a Clipper Courier newsletter to our entire community. That's just community members who have children in our school district, kind of highlighting some of the things I covered and some of the things that are notable about our district. Our goal is to send a newsletter on a quarterly basis throughout the year, just to kind of sort of show what the district is doing. So I'm excited about the final layout. It's really beautiful, and we'll learn a little bit about the color scheme in a moment. Finally, you can follow our various social media platforms, where you'll find out a lot about the ongoings and happenings in South Country. We've been really good in the last couple of years with just posting everything from athletics to each of our school buildings, departments, which is a great way to keep in touch with the great things that are happening in each of our buildings. Another way to keep in touch, of course, is our community portal, open to any community member who wishes to receive correspondence that parents receive via Blackboard Connect. You can subscribe here in our main website. We also have a link to our social media handles, and a link to the Superintendent's Corner, which has my contact information, my social media, and the Superintendent's weekly update, which is basically a blog that's published on Fridays for the district staff, but gets published to the website on Mondays. And so that kind of leads to our next, I had one more slide. We also are happy to launch our strategic planning process. An email went out to the entire district community via Blackboard Connect, eliciting feedback. So I really want to encourage people to participate in our survey. It's open to students as well. And if you have a phone, you can actually scan this QR code. That'll bring you to the survey. But participate in the process. Thought Exchange is a great sort of format where you can see other people's comments. You can rate comments. You can input your comments. It's totally anonymous. And the idea is, as we get into our strategic planning process, we want to make sure we elicit input from all of our stakeholders in our community. So that process will be ongoing. We'll keep sending out messages as the process continues, which will culminate in a big community event in January, where we'll go over the survey results and talk about how that's going to sort of steer the Clipper in a steady course moving forward. And that concludes my superintendent's report, but I want to continue, and I want to invite up Mr. Albrecht, our Director of Instructional Technology, who's going to talk about our website. And I mentioned the website in my superintendent's report, which it's a little antiquated. And so we've been working diligently to sort of upgrade it. So I asked Ms. Albrecht to come and kind of give a little update on our website design.
Good evening, Mr. Santana, members of the board, and the entire South Country community. Tonight, as Mr. Santana said, I am going to be updating us on the progress toward our new website. So before we ever start anything, we need to know why we're doing it. We don't just do things to do them, right? So what's our why here? First of all, as Mr. Santana said, we've had our website for quite some time, and there hasn't really been any significant upgrades to it. So when we looked at websites of other districts around the island, it becomes very clear that ours seems antiquated. We needed to update our website and our whole web presence to be more modern, better showcase the great things that are happening, as we just saw in Mr. Santana's presentation, all around our district, and most importantly, better serve the people of our community. So I wanted to share a little bit of the history behind this project. It's been taking place about the past 18 months or so. One of the first things that Mr. Santana actually requested of me was that we update the website. He planted this seed way back in 2023, May of 2023, before it was even board approved. So that got the ball rolling. I spent some time gathering information on what was actually out there for us to use. Syntax is our current provider, and they weren't an option anymore since they're leaving the web hosting game. So I need to start from scratch. I met a few vendors at conferences I went to, reached out to my colleagues to see how they liked their providers, and looked at every single district website on the island. I had some information to share, so I asked for volunteers. We formed a website committee because, after all, this needs to reflect our entire community, not just what I like. I'm new here, right? So our first committee meeting was in November of 2023, and we decided on what we liked and what we didn't like about our site and other sites that we were visiting. We made a list of what was really important to us as a community and how we wanted to appear to the world. We invited companies in to present to us and chose Final Site as the winner because it checked all of our boxes. It really came out head and shoulders above everyone. We wanted to make sure that updating our website was easy. Right now, the back end of what we're using is a little cumbersome. We had seen many Final Site samples from all over the island as well as other states in their presentation, and they really have a wonderful reputation amongst different districts here. So we fell in love with it, and we saw what they could do for us, and as a bonus, the price was right. They are fully BOCES eatable. So like I said, we spent some considerable time on what was important, and a few key themes kept emerging throughout these conversations. First, we wanted to make sure that our website was engaging for anyone who visits it. We wanted to showcase our Clipper pride, and we wanted the world to see the big picture of who we really are. We also insisted on making sure that our site was equitable and that it serves all members of our community. This entails making sure it's easily accessible in other languages and is ADA compliant and can convert to mobile easily. It was also important to us that the new website be somewhat uniform between school building landing pages, so that families with multiple children can find information in similar places when navigating between the schools. It was also important to us that the website reflect our colors, since the current one doesn't really do that. We even had a contest for a new updated logo, which we'll talk about in a minute. Most importantly, the website needs to be informative. It needs to be a place where both current and prospective community members can come to easily find what they need in the least amount of clicks. So, where are we now? We chose Final Site as the vendor, decided what was important to us, so now we're deep into design phase 1. I asked the high school art teachers to get their students to design a new logo for our new website. This was an attempt to have our website be a product that reflects our community. And who better to contribute than the reason we are all here but our students. The logo you see before you is the winner. Congratulations to Luke Grazer, who is with us tonight on his amazing work. His design was voted the #1 design, and we will be using it on the new website, as well as our new letterhead and the newsletter that Mr. Santana referenced earlier. He made this design using Adobe Illustrator, yes? Yes. Under the tutelage of Mr. Varley, his art teacher. Can we bring up that?
Yeah.
Okay, so Luke, please come up as we would like to recognize you as the artist whose work will graze our website and our publications for years to come.
I'm gonna see if it's a real bonus. That's the frame, the final product, I'm gonna show the public,
Yay!
so you can take it home. So this is something that's gonna stay with the district for years to come, man, you should be really proud. Yeah, so it's, this is for you to take home. We'll give you your certificate as well. Thank you for leading the charge and actually the tutelage you provide in your art classrooms. But here's a framed copy of the logo, which is really beautiful. So congratulations, Luke, man.
Thank you.
All right. Yes. That's yours. Lauren.
Yeah, just a little bit. That's good. Everyone else can just kind of,
Tall
file in.
guys are on the end, so
There you go, yeah. We're almost evened out. There you go. Yeah, you got pop. There you go. All right, roll in. 3. Perfect.
Thank you. All right.
So the other parts of this phase, besides our beautiful new logo, including creating the homepage, choosing our colors and our fonts, a mission and vision section, some basic information, and showcasing our Clipper Pride. We had to submit some documents detailing what we would like in the drop-down menus, which will help clean up the pages and make them more easily navigable to all who visit. All of this was accomplished through the collaboration with Ms. Doyle and our website committee, so I wanted to extend a huge thank you to those who have participated in this process thus far and will continue to help us turn out a beautiful product. So, without further ado, I present to you the first mock-up. It's so exciting! The first mock-up of our brand new website. Please remember that this is the very first draft. It may, and actually definitely will, undergo many changes. Our committee saw it for the first time this afternoon. We actually had a meeting at 3:45, so it's like brand new. This is the first time it's ever been seen by anybody other than us. Okay, so let's open up that.
That's pretty quick.
So this is kind of like a picture of the page. It's somewhat navigable, but this is like where we build things. So the first thing you might notice is our beautiful logo on the left-hand side. And we use the colors in the logo to really drive the look of the whole site. I'm not going to tell you where because it's going to be sort of like a little scavenger hunt as I navigate through. I want you to look for nautical hints. Because we've always wanted to pay homage to our community of shipmen?
Clippers.
I don't know how to, clippers, yeah.
Are we
Okay.
supposed to be pointing them out as they go?
I'm not going to point them out. You'll see them. You'll
But you
definitely.
can point them out.
You can. You want to?
What about the rope at the boat?
Okay.
Yes, the rope. There you go.
I wanted to win.
Okay, so on the right, along the top button, the top line, the red navigation bar, you will notice that the page can be translated directly into Spanish or Creole, as well as a drop down on the right side that leads to our schools. Let's see if I can get to that on this.
Is that Creole on the
It is,
page
yeah.
there?
So instead of the people who need things translated and you have to go to something that says like in English, translate here, it's actually in the languages, which makes it so much better for them. Yeah, the top line is not going to let me do it, but this is drop down of the schools. On the white navigation bar, there's an I want to button. We felt that it was important to give our people who are visiting an easy way to get to the things that are most commonly come to the website for. So this kind of looks like a conversation, right? So, you know, to log into eSchool, most of our parents do that on a regular basis. Register children, sports schedules is big, lunch menus like, you know, a daily occurrence that people are looking for, and of course, get our board info. This bar here is actually going to be switched to calendars. That was one of the main things we spoke about today at the meeting. And then this flyout button of the menu has many of the things that we had on the old website. These pages are not active yet, they still need to be built. So you'll see a lot of the information for district, Board of Ed, departments, academics, resources, and the calendars. Like I said, it's going to be moved to that other hot button. Continuing down the page. This is called the Hero section. That's what Final Site calls it, the Hero section. And it's kind of like the first splash that our community will see. What we had decided for this rotator, so you might notice down here, and this is not active yet, but down here you can rotate them and it will rotate on its own. It's on like a 6-second delay once it's active. It's going to be the letters of pride. So the first one is prepared, second is respectful. You may remember this, Mr. Santana's kind of been using this for a while,
Just a little
right?
bit.
Just a little bit. Involved, diligent, and ethical. So each of 5 different slides, and some text to accompany each word, because as Clippers, this is what we promote, right? Coming down the line, mission and vision section, that's here. This where it says a traditional quality future of excellence, we're probably gonna change that to like a nice big mission vision, so it pops better. And our mission vision statements are there. And please remember that all of this is editable, and with our new strategic planning, if these things change, like the words in them change, we can absolutely move that. Underneath the mission vision statements, this is going to be rotated with the values that relate back to our mission and vision. These values that we live as Clippers daily to support those statements. So we have student-centered learning and a couple other things that Ms. Doyle put together for us there. Next, we have the news and events section, and I know it's kind of hard to see here, but actually the red picture in the background is our orchestra. I don't know if you guys can see that. So in the events section, obviously we have the current events will be on the left, and that's similar to what Syntax puts now on our rotator on the front, and then the right-hand side will tie directly into our calendar events, so things that are pertinently upcoming will be sort of in your face there. You don't have to go searching for anything. The last section is our program section, and again, I worked with Ms. Doyle on this piece as well. This is where we highlight the programs that we're most proud of, and we want to show these to the world. The photos, of course, will reflect the programs more accurately in future drafts, and these are just placeholders. So what Ms. Doyle had pointed out, things that we're really very proud of here, are our restorative practices, our civic education, the bilingual ed program here, our athletics, things in our elementary schools, and things in our secondary education schools. So this is where we are right now, and like I said, this is our first draft, and the committee did have some suggestions just at our meeting today, and we're going to meet again very soon, to really go through this with a fine-tooth comb and decide how we want to amend this. Please remember that every website is a living document. Once we finish authoring this the first time out, and when we have our release date, it's not over. We have to continue to keep this updated, or it's going to fall apart. It's not going to be great, and all this time spent will be for nothing. So what's next? Let me get back. Back here. Next, after this phase, we go into creating the templates for the school pages. At this stage, we consult with building principals to make sure that the pages accurately reflect what their buildings are. We need to decide what stagnant information should be included, as well as space for the upcoming events, lunch menus. Those things have to still be created. Next, those who will be updating the site with content need to be trained. This includes some building level and district level personnel. Syntax will still be handling a portion of this because they're still going to remain our PR firm. And the contents of the pages will continuously be adjusted, like I said, to reflect what's happening around our district on a daily basis. So our launch date is actually July of 2025, and you may think, wow, you've been working on this for 18 months and you're not done yet. Yeah, we projected this out so far because we want to take our time, and we want to do it right and do a great job. So there's not going to be a lot of copying over from the old website onto the new platform, and all of the entries will be deliberate and purposeful. There's a good amount of sorting through this information that needs to happen before we bring anything over at all, and that's going to be a huge task for the website committee moving forward. So thank you so much for indulging me in this time here, and I hope you enjoyed your sneak peek of our new website. And we're confident that our site will help shine a light on all of the great things that happen throughout the South Country community and reflect back our Clipper pride. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions, or?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Albrecht.
You're welcome.
Great work, thank you.
Ready?
Lauren,
Yep.
report.
Okay, trustee and advisory committee reports. We'll start with you, Lauren.
So at Belfort High School, we had a great October. The homecoming dance went really well, and everyone had a great time. The Safe Halloween trip to the elementary schools was very exciting and informative for the elementary students within the district. Trunk or Treat was on October 30th and was a success as well. We had so many, as you can see on the presentation, we had a lot of clubs participate. And there was a great student turnout. There were a lot of little kids in costumes, so it was great. Everyone had a great time. Our fall food drive is still going on in the high school. The BHS Student Council is collecting and organizing non-perishable food items that will later be distributed to members of our community. We are very busy planning for the holidays and wish everyone in our community a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Nothing at this moment.
Mr. Lello?
Just a couple of things, other than riding in an antique fire truck, which is really cool, at homecoming. A couple things that I've been involved with. Secondary schools, the middle school and the high school, had their parent-teacher conferences on this past Friday. And I want to first thank the teachers for taking time. This is my 15th year going to parent-teacher conferences, and I learned something new about my children this year. So I just want to encourage parents to go, and again, thank the teachers for making that time available. And then today, I was lucky enough to read again at Brookhaven Elementary, and Dr. Raymond asked me to put this out, that the food pantry at Brookhaven now is partnering with Stop and Shop up in Yaphank on Sills Road, that they have Blooming for Good bouquets through December. If you buy one, $1 gets donated to the pantry. So if you like fresh flowers, it's a good place to go and just pick up the bouquet and help out your neighbors. So, thank you.
Ms. Kavanaugh?
Nothing for me this week.
Mercedes?
I'm gonna comment about the homecoming game, because I was on the 50-yard line, so I get a different view perhaps than the people on the field have. But one thing that really caught my eye, and I was really grateful for, is we had a female referee. So thanks very much to the sports organization for having a female referee at our homecoming game. I also did attend a Center of Excellence induction ceremony and counted 33 ninth graders. That's more than 10% of the class who were inducted into this program. And I'm looking forward to seeing them all be successful for the remainder of their high school career and going on to whatever they accomplish after high school. I attended the policy subcommittee meeting, and we're working with New York State School Board Association to get our policies all in order, and we're starting with just looking at the mandatory policies that are required of school districts. And we already have them in our current policies, but to see if we can simplify and streamline and get things in better order. So that's it for today.
Great, thank you. Mr. Barron?
So yes, just to echo on a couple of things, the Center of Excellence induction ceremony with trustees DeLillo and Hayes was very well received, as well as Superintendent Santana and Principal Della Rosa. Wanted to thank Nicole Caleo and Colleen Oates-Robush, who are the advisors of the center. And again, there's great opportunities for folks and students, and I know originally the program was started for those who are come from families who hadn't had a generation before them attend college or university, and now it's expanded out to more students who can hopefully focus on that avenue as well as the other avenues that students pursue after graduation. So it's great to see that in work. Also, I was invited to attend the Belport High School Parent-Teacher Student Association. Education to myself that there was an S in the PTSA, so I did learn a little bit about that. Chris Maresco, who is the president, invited me to attend the meeting. Just want to put it out there, they specifically talked about the importance of membership in the high school Parent-Teacher Student Association. It's a $10 membership. You can go online and purchase it, and I'll talk about that in a second. They're also pushing and trying to raise funds by selling Pura Vida bracelets in red and white, or school colors, for $10. And then if you haven't done your baking yet for Thanksgiving, there's still a chance to purchase baked goods that they have from Olish Farms that includes, much to my surprise and amusement, a family-sized whoopie pie. I've never seen it, but I've ordered one just to see what that would be like. But you can get that through belporths.givebacks.com. But if you want to chime in there, you can purchase your membership there. You can purchase some baked goods. They deliver it to the high school just before Thanksgiving, so you can get some nice fresh baked goods. But it was just good to see some people out there who are advocating and working hard to try and support the high school.
Okay, thank you. I don't have much, just one little quick story that every now and then I'm reminded of how important teachers are and were to me in my life, so every time I have an opportunity to tell a little story while I'm here, I do. Last Friday, unfortunately, the football team was not victorious against East Islip in the playoff game, but when I went to the game on Friday night, the former superintendent of East Islip, a gentleman named John Dolan, who retired last year, and I didn't know they named the administrative building after him. I was only there for 5 years, but he was my 8th grade social studies teacher, his first year teaching. And I had him again as a senior. And he was a guy, amongst many others that I was blessed to have in my life as I grew up and went through school, who was incredibly important to me. And he had a profound impact on the person I am today, and the person I was growing up through school back then. So we never made it to either one of our home team's sidelines. We were in the end zone talking for 2.5 hours. So, and it was nice. I got a real nice note from him the next day, and he's still involved in education a little bit, doing different things. So we're going to stay in touch. But again, it was, and as my wife, who's a teacher and is in her last year of teaching, and she's retiring this year, it's just, there's all these little reminders as we navigate through life about the special people in our lives, and a lot of times they're teachers, and sometimes we have to kind of remember that and remember those stories. So that's why I wanted to share it. So that's all I got. So moving on.
Yeah, thank you, President Piccini, and Mr. Dolan certainly remembered you as well, so.
He had a couple of jabs at me for sure. And I'll tell you this, like, if you know me personally, you know I can talk. Man, I couldn't keep up with him on my best day. But if you, and again, I don't want to keep going, but standing there with him, we were interrupted about 3 or 4 dozen times by people who just couldn't wait to come over and give him a hug and say hello. So he's had an impact on a lot of people, and there's millions of educators in our country who have had that same type of impact. So I think it's important to remember it and discuss it, because when we talk about education and we talk about dirty words like regionalization and budgets and things like that, sometimes we lose sight of how important that is and how impactful those that are caring for our children while they're in school are. So that's why I bring it up. So,
Thank you. Before we go to the public participation portion, for our student guests, if you want to go home, you have homework to do, this is your pre-pass, so feel free. It won't be.
You're welcome to stay too. But.
You're welcome to stay. We're not kicking you out. I always like to say that because sometimes people feel awkward. So, by all means, if you need to go, or you can stay in and hear us talk about
Nobody said you
regionalization.
could leave. I'm just
Have a happy
Take care.
Thanksgiving.
You as well.
All right, have a good night. All right, do we have any cards?
No points, but we need to refresh again. I apologize.
On board here, that's just refresh, please, everybody on
Yep.
board docs.
Thank you.
Have a nice
Take care.
night, thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Take care.
I have a feeling it was for the personnel agenda, right?
No, what was for the business? Only one was removed. Both.
Oh, got it. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so, no, item G. board consent, I'm sorry.
Nope, we're.
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped over it, F, I'm sorry, thank you. The regionalization plan. Is this you or me?
I can start it off.
Yeah, why don't you start off?
So basically, there's been a lot of chatter about New York State's regionalization plan. They've asked districts to submit a whole bunch of data with regards to the resources we have in district, our programs we offer. And basically, the way it's been framed to us as superintendents and school districts is, this was driven a lot by rural districts upstate, where there's like inequity in sort of access to resources. So, for example, if you're a school district in the Adirondacks, and literally some of these school districts have like hundreds of square miles radius where, people live, they felt like if you're a senior in a school like that has limited resources and programs, how are you supposed to compete with other students from New York State? So the idea is how can you sort of maximize opportunities for students and sort of share in resources. So initially it was proposed as a kind of a concept. The concept is not that new. It's already done on Long Island. For example, there are smaller districts out east on the North Fork that share resources. I think of Greenport and Southold. They share athletics director. They combine their teams, I believe with Mattituck as well. A lot of smaller North Shore school districts, Wading River, Miller Plains, Mount Sinai will share certain programs and cross-contract with each other for programs that those smaller districts don't offer so that the students can have a competitive edge. That was kind of the premise behind it. I think it's been sort of spoken about a lot. There are certain fears that, and I'll talk about the sort of fears as well, that, this is kind of the ultimate mission was to take away local control from local districts, to take away some of that autonomy that local districts have in terms of developing their own programs, and also what is the implementation going to look like in terms of sharing resources. We have a pretty robust repertoire of programs we offer in South Country, as do our neighboring districts. We're surrounded by William Floyd to the east, Longwood to the west. Longwood to the north, Pat Med to the west, who also have robust programs. In fact, William Floyd, for example, has a great CTE program, automobile program. So I don't know how South Country would be impacted by this in terms of regionalization, but what we want to do is really have a discussion about how we feel about it. NYSBA, which is the New York State or the Nassau-Suffolk School Boards Association, put out a position statement, which I shared with the trustees, where they kind of stand and some of the concerns. So we just wanted to have a public conversation to discuss regionalization and our take on it.
Yeah, just to add to it, because the Nassau Suffolk School Board did do a webinar last week, which had the two representatives from SED on to discuss the concept of regionalization and what its purpose was. And I think Mr. Santana, hit the nail on the head for the sense when he talked about the rural school districts upstate. It really is a problem. And when you listen to things come out of the Blue Ribbon Commission, they talk about alternate pathways to graduation. If you're in a school of less than 100 kids with a 100-mile square radius, you're not getting access to those programs. I'm not necessarily so sure how regionalization solves the distance and mileage issues. That hasn't really been discussed yet. But I do know there is a lot of misinformation circulating, and I kind of get why. If you've been around long enough and you do this, concepts that come out of SED, usually aren't that bad. It's when, quite frankly, the politicians and the public gets a hold of it and starts twisting it. And, from what I've seen thus far, regionalization, if it moves forward in the way it's, in the concept it was meant for, it's probably a good thing. The problem is, like many times, from my perspective, when something like this comes down, this is an upstate problem, not a downstate problem, and we end up having to adhere to it. So how it really will impact us, to your point, really remains to be seen. But I'm really more worried about the rhetoric. There is a coalition of school districts, which, again, that's not even really a fair statement. They call themselves the coalition, and it's mostly made up of Nassau County school districts and boards of education. And they've been very vocal in the last few years, started during COVID with COVID restrictions. Many of them were caught up in the mascot issue, and their coalition seems to have grown to a couple dozen or maybe a dozen school districts here in Suffolk County. But as I've spoken to a few, and some friends of mine have spoken to a few board members from some of the districts who signed on, they didn't know what they were signing themselves onto, and they really didn't understand what the coalition represents. So the point is, they are circulating a lot of misinformation about combining school districts and things like that. And I mean, we've seen school districts, specifically out east, try to merge. I mean, the task of trying to merge school districts is epic. I don't know how you renegotiate 124 new contracts with all, times 4 for each school, I don't know how you solve all those different problems of transportation. The problem is, as this concept came out, and the governor's office, I believe, gave SED like 1.5 years, 2 years to come up, and now it's next year. They want some sort of phase-in to begin next school year. So I would just caution everybody to just pay attention and read and look for different sources and on what it really is, and go from there. I don't know if anybody's had any comments on it. I've just been kind of reading up a lot about it. Go ahead.
I was on the webinar also, and I'm glad you picked up on the misinformation aspect of what's going on, because that was what I was mainly struck by. I think that the concept of having all students in New York State have access to vibrant programs is a good one. How they go about achieving that, I don't know. And I kept thinking about how I think we're so fortunate in South Country that we're able to provide a lot of very robust programming for our kids. And in terms of shared services, that's available already, and particularly through our BOCES program. But I was glad to see the Nassau-Suffolk School Board Association do this statement that targeted the various issues about how there should be support for shared services and cost savings. And also, they focused on the relief from unfunded mandates, because that costs us a lot of money every year. So that gets into the whole issue of school financing and the state portion of what is paid to help us operate. They also mentioned the importance of not eroding local control like we have over our schools, and talked about, again, sharing all the resources that are available in the larger community, not just the individual district, and also the engagement of all stakeholders, parents, community members, everybody within the school system. So if they can figure out a way how to tie this in with the very real need of straightening out financing for education in the state of New York, that'll be good to see.
I might comment on it, mainly probably echoes a lot of that, but in concept, it's fantastic ideas. I mean, anything that's gonna create more opportunities, more access, and more things are all great things. But again, you have not in my backyard, you've got you've got this challenge of wrangling school districts together. I just don't, that would, it's going to take a heck of a lot longer than the timetable that they're laying out to try and put this together. And how to bring people to the table is gonna be something that would be, I don't know, I just can't see the steps being made.
And that's a typical problem in New York State, right? Like, we've been here before. It's a good idea, and then implementation is different. And, to the unfunded mandates and things, like there's gonna be cost in here. There always is. And that's where the fear comes in from myself and many of the organizations and many school board members. But the fear that's driving the opposition, one thing I constantly hear is that the plan is to create one school district for Suffolk County. One school district similar. If New York City can do it, Suffolk County can do it, Nassau County. there's nothing in anything that's come out of this that even suggests that is even viable or even, I mean, it's actually the opposite, right? We're just trying to bring more services to smaller districts instead of creating a giant district. But, you know, on the flip side, the cynic in me always says, all right, that's great for now, but what does this mean in 3 years ago when the next thing comes, right? It's almost like, it's unfortunate, but doing this long enough, and when you pay attention to education in this state, it's always about, all right, what's next? What is this the precursor to? And I think that's why there's so much skepticism. And, you know, it really hasn't gotten political yet, and this sure as heck will when you start talking about combining school districts, because then you'll have the tax pack type folks saying, all right, do we need this many superintendents and school principals, and do we need all these different people, right? That's where that conversation, that's what happens next. But many of the opposition does ignore that, you know, Long Island is because of the proximity and the density of our island, the BOCES, the component districts, they work. You know, it's not perfect, especially in some of those out east districts, but, you know, they really need a solution for those rural districts upstate, so. Anybody have any other comments, questions on regionalization? Does anybody have any opposition to the position statement put out by Nassau Suffolk School Board Association?
I mean, I guess my only take with them was, on the position statement, was it didn't really seem to take a position. You know, it said that, you know, indeed, we're not interested in merging school districts, what have you. We are interested, as Ann pointed out, about some of the unfunded mandates and maybe some sharing of services. It wasn't a true position statement.
It's not very strongly worded,
Right.
and I think that's, so,
And that may be intentional because
Yeah,
we're.
and I can tell you right now,
I feel like
it is.
that's
The
on,
process
that's
of-
on purpose.
so I can
Leading
add
into
a
it.
little bit to that, right? 'Cause
Yeah, super.
and I have a meeting tomorrow night, which I may or may not end up being at, but there is always a difficult balance that the association tries to manage, because we do need to collaborate and work with everybody that's involved here on both sides of the issue.
Totally get that.
But I did pick up that, I felt the same way, and I did speak to, actually, before the meeting, I did speak to the executive director on a couple of different topics, and this was one of them, and I did share that as well, and, you know, I shared it in the way that I knew what the answer was, and, you know, it is what it is.
Absolutely.
But-
I'm sorry, I was.
No, that's okay.
No,
interrupted
I
you.
just
Go
have, I
ahead.
have
Go
one
ahead.
more comment about it, and that I would love to see NISBA maybe address the fact that there's so much of this misinformation swirling around. And, you know, reassure its member districts, this is the correct information that you can put out through your board to your communities.
I think that's one of the reasons they're leaving that webinar up on their site.
Yeah, that is
No,
one, that's why they
yeah,
did
nobody's-
it, and I think they will do more educational pieces like that. I will say that, you know, for as long as I've been a member of that board, I've never seen the outside voices so confrontational.
Yeah.
So, and like this coalition specifically, and you know, there was, I think there was a press conference at Locust Valley last week, was there not? Locust Valley is one of the districts who will fight anything the state wants to do. If the state tells them the sky's blue, they're gonna fight them over, right? So, and their superintendent, I think, is lockstep in line with the board on it as well. I could be wrong on that.
So I guess my position is just that with this very vocal opposition and with this apparently growing coalition opposed to the idea without even having all of the facts, it might be helpful if some of
Yeah.
these organizations, these boards, took a firmer stance.
I'm gonna mention that tomorrow night, 'cause it's a good
Thank
point,
you.
and I kind of feel the same way.
Yeah.
So, anybody else, any other comments on it?
Yeah, and also the Suffolk County Superintendent's Association is also forging a sort of position statement on it. And again, I attended the webinar as well with many other superintendents, and then the state's contention is, you know, we're not mandating school districts to participate, which is something they communicated, nor are there gonna be penalties. So really, we wanna see, what really ignited the concern was this emergency proclamation and really accelerating the timeline. Because typically in New York State, if you think about the Blue Ribbon Commission, which is a graduation requirement, that's been like a 5 to 10 year process. They've been talking about for years and years. All of a sudden, this came very quickly, very similarly to the new sort of calculation of foundation aid formula, which is supposed to be released in December. that was also accelerated. So, we'll see. Sometimes I feel like the state puts the cart before the horse. Idea is great, but then when you start thinking about logistics, that's the piece that's not.
That's where the politics steps in.
Not fully formed.
So, okay. Moving on, yeah. Okay, got it. And then now we're on item G.
So, the administration recommends approval of curriculum items scheduled in G1 through G4.
G1 through 4, can I have a motion? Ms. Kavanaugh?
1 through 3, right?
1 through 3, thank you.
I'm sorry, correct.
Seconded by Ms. Hayes. Did you get that? Kavanaugh the first and Hayes second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries unanimous. Moving on to item H, board consent agenda for personnel.
The administration recommends approval of personnel changes reflected in items H.
1 through 10.
Yep, 1 through 10. So once again, the administration recommends approval of personnel changes reflected in schedules H1 through H10.
Each 1 through 10, can I have a motion? Mr. Flippin, seconded by Ms. Kavanaugh. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries unanimous.
Okay, so
Item I, board consent agenda for business.
So I do want to mention something in our personnel agenda.
Oh, yeah.
Very happy to pleased to announce that we have just approved and appointed Dr. Anthony Aiello to be the assistant principal at Bellport Middle School, who's present here tonight. Anthony Aiello has a long experience in public education. In his last role, he served as an assistant principal at Nassau BOCES Center for Community Adjustment, where he worked with the sort of special education students. And really what struck us most about his experience was his versatility with PBIS, which is positive behavioral interventions and supports, restorative practices, sort of school culture. Prior to that, he was a special education and general education teacher for a little over 10 years in Hauppauge, with various other experiences, including alternative night high school teacher in Rocky Point and a middle school teacher in Central Iceland. Again, one of the things I think that was most pressed upon me is just sort of our sort of similar mindsets and the way we see schools and school cultures, and try to create a student-centered learning environment that's supportive of its staff. So I want to welcome you to the South Country team. Welcome, and please I want to introduce the board to Dr. Anthony Aiello.
Welcome. Speech ready? Okay, moving on to business items I.
All right, I just want to make sure the trustees, thank you, sir. I just wanted to make sure the trustees refreshed. You should have 14 items. But
Yep.
the administration recommends approval of business items reflected in schedules I-1 through I-14.
Can I have a motion? Ms. Kavanaugh, seconded by Mr. Barry. Any discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So I wanted to ask a question regarding in particular the agreement with Gaggle.net Inc. I wanted to learn a little bit more about the program, how it would benefit our district, and also what are some of the services that they would be
Sure.
providing.
So we actually been contracting through Eastern Suffolk BOCES with Gaggle. Gaggle basically monitors all the internet activity for our students. And they pick up on anything that might be sort of a threat to personal well-being or community well-being by just targeting target words. So they basically provide oversight for all of our sort of Chromebook activity, internet activity, and they report back to us in real time should anything come up where a student expresses suicidal ideations or threats to harm. That's basically their primary focus. In terms, they also have the capability of providing like telehealth, immediate like interventions if something really is like flagged, and also correspondence with law enforcement. So it's basically oversight for the virtual world that our kids, and again, this only works through our devices. So I don't want to.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, I don't want to give the false impression that they're, spying in people's private lives. But anything that's done through our Chromebooks or school-issued internet networks, they're monitoring and sort of filtering out anything that might be of concern.
One of the things, just to follow up, that I read in there was that they're going to be providing counseling to students based on those ideations?
No, so that's a capability they do, but we don't use them for counseling. We have a partnership with Northwell Health, But what we do primarily with Gaggle, that's one of the services they offer, but really what we're doing with Gaggle is the oversight of the internet activity.
So if our devices and our network, if I'm not mistaken, we have the ability, and we do, restrict certain sites and platforms, do we not?
We do, yeah.
So if this, and I'm not saying disagree with this, but if we have the ability to block sites where kids can post and, you know, things like that, where there might be comments or behaviors that warrant some sort of flag, to, you know, why would we need to pay for a service if we already have, you know, what's the difference, right?
That's a great question. So basically, it's communication between students and appropriate platforms. So if a student expresses, like, the classic example to me that I think about, or sharing docs, remember, that all goes to the cloud.
Okay,
So they're monitoring that. So they're not, our firewall is driven by our IT department. That's separate. So we have a firewall. You know, I shouldn't say this in public, but my son broke his firewall when he was a 7th grader because he's tech savvy. But our firewalls, in terms of objectionable content and apps, is controlled by the district. They're looking at anything that's approved, because remember, kids can say things, and students, on platforms that are appropriate, but they're saying inappropriate things.
Understood.
So whether it's email correspondence to teacher or using different platforms of some of the apps we use, if anything is found within that sort of context, then it gets flagged.
Thank you. Any other questions?
But it has to happen through our devices or network.
So when it gets flagged, it goes to an administrator, or is it
Depends.
done through?
The police or administrator.
Okay, so they will handle that directly.
So you said our network, so, and I thought
Or
it was done.
Chromebooks.
Only our Chromebook, because network means our Wi-Fi, right? So,
Correct. Our
So-
Wi-Fi here in district, so, but even if a kid logs on to their home Wi-Fi for their Chromebooks, we can monitor the Chromebook activity.
but what if it's the opposite? What if they use their device to access our Wi-Fi?
With that, you
Yes,
can't
that-
monitor, can you?
Ms. Walbrecht is here.
Whenever, regardless of the device, when they connect to anyone, you included, connect to our Wi-Fi signal, you are being filtered. So
Wow.
that, so yes, so Gaggle will be monitoring that, and to add on to Mr. Santana's explanation, it's not only through things that they would type in an app, in Google, something like that, but search terms that may be blocked, but they are still searching for them. It'll pick up on that as well.
If there's no legal issues there with it being their device and our network, and what we can restrict and filter and see?
No, because once you're on our network, you're on our network. So if you're using your cell signal, then yeah, that's.
The attorney's smiling behind you, so I want to hear what Ms. Emma Holtz has to say, if you don't mind, unless you want to get back to us.
No, I don't have to get back to you. There's no legal issue. There's no right to privacy on the public network.
Oh, then, okay,
Yeah,
great.
and you have a contract that's legally sufficient, along with a writer, a couple of writers there.
Okay, great.
Our acceptable use policy is in effect for this, for everything internet-based in there that's our district provides.
Okay. And there's nothing we can do to extend monitor, like, so, but it has nothing to do with cell coverage? Because you can access anything through cell coverage on your own device, right? For the most
That,
part.
I think,
can
would
turn off the
be
Wi-Fi.
some kind of
That can't,
That's
provision.
privacy.
that,
I don't think that's covered under this contract.
no, I don't, I'm just making sure, I'm just asking what the differences
No,
are.
we can't, correct me if I'm wrong, we can't monitor like cell activity, but if you log on to our Wi-Fi signal, there's no assumption of privacy.
Got it, okay. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
The change order for the synthetic turf field replacement at the high school, if I read that correctly, it's coming in under budget, so we're getting a credit?
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Or something changed in the project.
That's the way I read it, it looks like we're getting some money
Yeah,
back.
credit of 20,000.
Okay.
I think it's in red and everything.
Is it red? Like
It's
the
in
mail?
red in
Like,
parentheses.
Yeah, yeah,
All
like it's
right.
coming back if you look at the.
Okay, and then, once we, I hope there'll be some comment about the very generous donation that's down here, number 7.
Of course.
And we have a representative in the audience, so, Okay, so we've got that covered. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries unanimous.
All right, so to trustee Hayes' point, I just want to thank the South Country Educational Foundation for the, as I do on an annual basis, actually twice a year, I will, in my next superintendent's report, give a summary of some of the grants that were granted. Sounds redundant, but it's not. But I do want to thank the South Country Education Foundation, and I'll do a more formal thank you and appreciation for, again, years of continual, support of our programs. A lot of these grants just cover things that are just bonuses. I call them icing on the cake items that teachers request and staff members request just to add to their instructional programs. This is inclusive of classroom materials, field trips, and experiences for our students. So thank you so much for your generous donation, and I'm looking forward to sort of sharing the summary of different grants at our next board meeting.
Great.
So these been approved?
Yes.
You're
Yes,
approved.
yes. Your job is done.
Thank you.
I'm
May I
assuming,
make a comment?
yeah.
About the various grants? I was impressed with how many of our educators had applied for the grants to do local field trips, taking advantage of local sites. And I'm really glad to see our kids given the opportunity to get introduced to the historical and environmental sites that are right around us, so that they get to learn all about that.
Great. Thank you. Do we have any other cards for non-agenda items? Any board members have any remarks in closing? No, open the floor for a motion to adjourn. Mr. Lello, seconded by Ms. Kavanaugh.
Wait, did we vote?
Yeah, we voted.
Okay.
All those in favor?
No, it's important.
Motion carries. Good night, everybody. Thanks for coming.